Hi, Quens! So, here we are, episode 6 of RuPaul's Drag Race. The drag queens walk into the workroom, and immediately they have a mini challenge, which Adore and Ben win, and they have to pick teams once again. This time, they don't go for the respective episode 1 teams. They just pick, depending on who they think will do well at the challenge. They got a little wiser, finally. So, inevitably there's always one person that does get picked last, and that was Miss Tyra 2.0, Trinity K. Bonet, and she was livid. She almost didn't want to do the challenge. She was very unproductive, and she they were assigning roles. She wasn't very excited that it was an acting challenge. She stood very comfortably in her pageant girl role, but it wasn't she didn't look like she wanted that either. She just looked unfazed by the whole situation just because she was picked last. Like, even if you're picked last, just get into the challenge, do good, and stay in the competition. Don't start whining and moaning and making the other queens fall off their horse so that your team can lose and your ass can go home, because in a competition, you do well with whatever you're given, because that will make you stand out against anybody else. Adore and Courtney are both singers. They've both been on Idol, and they kind of pit them against each other because they both got the lead roles, which had the most singing parts, and they had a little sing-off in the workroom that the producers put together, and everybody was like, ooh, the idols, Battle of the Idols, and it was pretty much the whole theme of the episode was which idol will rise to the top and be the winner of the challenge. During the rehearsal for the challenge, once again, Trinity Bonet was not being productive to her team. She was holding them back. She was almost like an anchor that would not budge. She kept arguing back with the choreographer. She kept arguing back with Bianca. Bianca was trying to help her because Bianca is there to win. Like, she knows the competition. She's very seasoned, and she knows what she has to do. Even if she has to bend her own rules as a drag performer, she knows what she has to do to make it to the next stage in the competition. And Trinity's very young, very naive, and she doesn't understand that she has to almost become a certain character. She wants to just be Trinity, and that's okay. You don't want to wager on who your drag persona is and become somebody else and lose yourself, but when you're doing an acting challenge, you're not your drag persona. You're being somebody completely different, and that was the whole point of the challenge. Even if she was still being a pageant queen, she still had to pick a character. And even back in the workroom when she still didn't get it, like, how many times do you have to rehearse this dance? That's not simple. You just grab somebody's arm, twist around, and you're done. Bianca had to help her out, and she was not listening, so Bianca had to slay her real quick. In the other group, I think despite her language barrier, even though she was the weakest team player, and she's the best English-speaking Puerto Rican queen to ever be on the show, the language barrier kind of got in the way. Her accent really was a hindrance to her in the challenge. Her singing was not great, and it just really, it made her nervous, and that's what really broke her down in the challenge, and that's what put her in the bottom 2 for the runway, because on the runway she looked absolutely stunning. There were no flaws. I think her shading was around her lace front was a little off, but I just think her look was perfect. It was one of my favorites on the runway this week. I really loved the concept of Shade the Rusical. I thought it was really cute. It was executed perfectly, and it just was entertaining to me. It made me cackle in a few spots, and it just was very heartwarming because it was almost a message to every queen. No matter how different you are, just work together and make something beautiful out of it. It's not all about shade and who's better. It's all about togetherness and a sisterhood, because in drag, that's what it is. So I'm just going to go through and point out who the shining stars and the weakest player of every team was. In group 1, Courtney, Bianca, and Ben really shone bright for me. They really took on to their characters, and it just looked amazing. They really put everything together. I felt like that group was my favorite. It was the strongest. Everybody did everything correctly. Minus Darienne. I think Darienne really, as a comedy queen, she let herself fly under the radar. Whereas Gia, her voice really played into the part, and I feel like Darienne should have made a voice kind of like Gia's so they could have been in unison. Trinity, she was an anchor to the group, and she did not put anything into the group. She was just a negative Nancy the whole time, and that really turns me off. I'm not liking Trinity as much as I thought I was going to like her. It could be that the producers are really just showing all her bad moments, but I mean, she just reminds me of Tyra so much, and Tyra was not one of my favorite Drag Race queens ever. In group two, Adore really shone bright, and Jocelyn again surprised me, and she was kind of an actress. She did really well. She was the strongest out of the three sisters or background dancers. Even though she fell in the background a little bit, she really, like, I couldn't get my eyes off her because she looked absolutely beautiful, and she really has charisma. I think she is Miss Congeniality of this season. Even if she doesn't win, she's gonna get Miss Congeniality. The weak player was obviously April. Her language barrier really let her down, unfortunately, and I was so sad because she's one of my absolute favorites, and she's from Puerto Rico. So I mean, I have to support her, but um, she was the weakest link, even though I wish Trinity would have gone home. I really don't like how the new seasons are being edited of RuPaul's Drag Race. I feel like we get a lot less time in the workroom, which is usually my favorite part because I get to see how the queens interact with each other, and we get a lot more time on the runway. This week we didn't get that much on the runway, like the girls walking out, and I hate when they do that. They just show us glimpses of their looks, and we don't get to see how they really flow on the runway. And that's usually my another favorite part of my show when they're on the runway. But I did pick a few favorites. My favorite this week again was Laganja. Her look was very put together, and she really surprised me. I think she's very tasteful. She has a great sense of fashion and style, and she's really showing a lot of different sides to her. This week it was like a very edgy, but her face was very soft, and I like that. Another look that I love was April, and finally Jocelyn. She looked really like a Cinderella, and I think it played well for the Tony Awards red carpet. It was a character within itself, and she just looked glowing. My least favorite look was Trinity. I thought it was boring, uninspiring, just like her performance in the challenge, and that's really what put her in the bottom. This week there was a lot of shade coming toward the queens from the judging panel. Number one, Trinity K. Bonet and her flipper. Her damn flipper. Those fake teeth, they look scary, first of all, and they don't let her talk. I mean, she could have taken off the flipper for the challenge. It would have helped her so much more. But then again, she's kind of boring, so maybe not. So just keep your flipper in and stay pretty. Ru was talking to Darianne, and she kind of threw a little bit of shade at Gia for sounding like annoying and a foghorn or whatever she said. Ru shaded her really hard and told her, well, if Gia did so bad, then why are you here? And Darianne said, because she thinks she's in the top group. But Ru gave her the look like, girl, you done fucked up. Red for not being cinched and not being polished by Michelle and Santino. He said that the gown didn't fit her, it was ill-fitting and didn't reach the ground, and he wished that it did because it looked like it was a little girl's gown on her. And I agree. I mean, I guess it's kind of Adore's character. She's almost like a trashy hooker kind of girl, but I don't think you need to tie in your character to every runway look. You need to be polished, especially for a runway like this one. This one was a very special runway. It was a red carpet event. You want to look the part. Because there are girls out there like Adore's idol, Anna Nicole Smith, who are a mess, yes, but when you saw her out in public in a red carpet, the girl looked stunning. So the well-deserved winner of this week was Courtney. I thought she did amazing. She really made me feel like I was watching a Broadway play. She had all the mannerisms. Her voice was so pretty, and she's so beautiful. I can't even get over it. The bottom two became Trinity, which I think is the Coco of the season. She's going to be in the bottom a lot of times until she goes home. And April. Unfortunately, April went home. I thought it was the best lip sync of the season. It was very high energy. Both the girls looked amazing, and they lip synced very good. They were both very good, and it was sad to see one of the girls sashay away. I wish it was a non-elimination. Next week we have the Snatch Game, and I'm really excited. It's usually one of my favorite challenges of the whole season. This Snatch Game looks really promising. A lot of the characters are larger than life, and I'm excited to see Bianca Del Rio as Judge Judy and Darianne Lake as Paula Deen and Courtney Act as Fran Drescher. Those are a lot of my favorite personalities. I'm predicting a Bianca Del Rio win, and hopefully she comes through with it because the bitch is a slayer, and she's here to win. And I think she's by far my favorite. Courtney was my pre-show favorite because I've been wanting her on the show forever, and Bianca flew under the radar for me, but now I'm like, girl, you are Queen Bee. QueenBee.com. That is Bianca Del Rio. I think in the bottom two next week we're gonna have Gia and Laganja, and they're both very high energy performers. So it's gonna be an amazing lip sync if that is gonna be the bottom two. So I'm kind of excited for the bottom two, and even though I don't want like anybody to go home, well, except for Trinity. But I think Laganja and Gia will be in the bottom two, and Laganja will send Gia packing. Unfortunately, I will miss Gia's shady confessionals if she goes home. Next week, I might not have a review up because I'm going to be on vacation, but hopefully when I come back from vacation, I can get it up real quick. Maybe I'll do a review for that week. And let me know who you thought was the best this episode and who you thought was the worst and who you think next week's best and who next week's worst will be. And next time, my Quins, have a great week and I'll see you soon.